Supplements have fascinated me for a long time because if something can give you an increase in muscle growth or energy and all you need to do is take a pill, it kind of feels like a no-brainer. And while it can be true sometimes, more often than not, companies and influencers use this notion of people wanting the easy way out to just make money off of those people. Look at any of the popular fitness influencers and you'll see a supplement ad, whether it's for directly the company that they own or indirect through affiliates. And so in today's video, I'll go over the supplements that don't work or are scams, but I'll also go over alternatives for each one that do work. So let's start with pre-workout and why a simple 3 to 4 ingredient DIY version that uses one ingredient that isn't even actually marketed as a pre-workout is the best option. So first of all, most pre-workouts you'll see are overpriced because so much of the budget just goes to marketing. Like, you need to get whatever fitness influencer is popular now to sponsor the product, or the fitness influencer will straight up just make their own product without knowing much on the topic for the most amount of sales. On top of that, so many pre-workouts use something called a proprietary blend, which lists all the ingredients but not the dosages. So you might think you're getting a good ingredient, but more often than not, it's not enough, and a bunch of the other ingredients barely do anything. And the thing is, even if the amount is labeled, you don't actually know what's inside because companies lie all the time. They could be underdosed to save on expenses or just not even contain the ingredient at all and use something else. And if you don't believe me, the research shows you the exact same thing. I think around 85% of pre-workouts they've found out don't actually have the effective amount of ingredient that is shown in the literature. So that's why, in my opinion, making your own pre-workout is way more cost effective because you can get the bulk supplements, you can modulate the dosages, you can remove certain ingredients depending on the time or type of workout, you can remove an ingredient if it just feels like it's not working for you, it's giving you side effects. You have basically complete control. So let's get into that pre-workout that I'm talking about. As its base, it's actually coffee because caffeine plays the biggest role for your energy. And also coffee just contains a lot of antioxidants that are just good for your overall health. So that's the base for a lot of pre-workouts. And that's like the main ingredient that actually does something in most of the pre-workouts you'll find. And so you want around 150 to 300 milligrams of caffeine. And since the caffeine isn't mixed in a blend, if you're working out at night and you don't want it to affect your sleep, you just take it out of the stack. Or if you're building a tolerance and you want to use one day on, one day off, or if you notice it increases your heart rate way too much, you can play with the dosages. That's what's nice about having, not a blended pre-workout. The next thing is for your pump. So we had the caffeine for the energy. Now we're going to use the L-citrulline for the pump. And, a big pump is not just, for the fun of it. It means more blood flow, which means more oxygen and nutrients that are delivered to your muscles, which can also just lead to higher endurance, better performance, and better muscle growth over time. And so the reason we're using L-citrulline is because it gets converted into arginine into your body, which boosts NO, nitric oxide levels. And higher NO just means better blood vessel dilation, which gives you the better pump that you're looking for. So the thing is, L-citrulline is found in a lot of pre-workouts, but most of the time it's underdosed. They only put like 1 to 2 grams. And sometimes they even use a form called L-citrulline malate, which just mixes the pure citrulline that you want with malic acid. But studies show that the effective amount is closer to 6 to 8 grams. So you can just buy the bulk supplement off of a website, and then it's so much cheaper, and you're actually putting in the dosage that you need for your body weight and, your gender. Now, that's for the pump. You can add one more thing for the pump, and it's actually an ingredient that isn't even found in most pre-workouts because it shouldn't be. And you can actually take this alongside citrulline. That's because it works through a different pathway, and that thing is Cialis, also known as tadalafil. So, quick disclaimer, I am not a medical professional, so always consult your doctor first and do your own cost analysis to see if something like this is even worth it for you. And remember, that goes for all supplements. Do your own cost analysis. Refer to, your medical professional for that. And because remember, they can all have negative effects that could be related to your genetics, or they simply just might not be worth it for you if you don't have the money for it or you don't have the investment resources for it. So always make sure you got your lifestyle in check. But back to talking about the tadalafil. What it is it's a PDE5 inhibitor, meaning it works differently than L-sertraline. So instead of like boosting the nitric oxide levels directly, it prevents the breakdown of cyclic GMP, which will help widen your blood vessels, which means there's more blood flow, and it gives you a stronger and longer lasting pump, not only for what it was made for, like ED, erectile dysfunction, but that effect is actually throughout your whole body. So you'll notice you get a much better pump in the gym. And a typical dosage is usually around 5 to 10 milligrams for your workout. And the nice thing is it has a very long half-life, I think about 36 hours. So you don't need to be taking it daily. You can just use it on your, as a pre-workout. It also has actually a few side benefits that are pretty useful. So if you have like high blood pressure, it can actually help lower it by improving the circulation. And the nice thing is it doesn't really affect your testosterone levels like a lot of, muscle boosting supplements do. So that's one thing you can do. Obviously, do it at your own discretion. But that's for the pump. So we took care of the energy, we took care of the pump. Now the other thing for your endurance that you can add, and I think it's probably worth adding because you probably have it at home, and that is baking soda, which increases the pH in your blood levels, which kind of allows you to just pump out more sets and have more endurance. The other thing, so that's the three things. That's the base, in my opinion. Well, four things technically, but the three main pillars that you want to hit, and not necessarily a pre-workout, but I think the OG natty supplement, creatine, it just has to be there. There are other ingredients you can add, like maybe carnitine, but I think best bang for your buck version contains these things, along with some pre-workout carbs that will give you the pump and the energy and the endurance boost that you need. The nice thing is each of these ingredients don't really interact negatively with each other, and at the same time, it's still pretty cost effective, obviously depending on if you're going to go the tadalafil route. Next supplement that I think is being pushed by the fitness industry or just, the industry in general that isn't worth it are multivitamins or just vitamins in general. They're vastly inferior to just eating a nutrient-rich diet because a lot of the time some minerals are underdosed, some of them are overdosed. A lot of the time, because they compete for absorption, and some of them, the content is just too much, you end up peeing out what you don't need. On top of that, like certain vitamins are fat soluble, some of them are water soluble, so they just shouldn't be taken at the same time. So mixing them into one pill, it kind of just doesn't make sense. Studies even show that people are still chronically deficient in a lot of the key nutrients despite them taking multivitamins, and it kind of goes to show it's just not worth it. It's so much more inferior to just having a nutrient-rich diet. But there is one supplement related to vitamins and minerals that I think you should take, and that is vitamin D3. I think it's the only one that you should take every single day in, upwards of more than 2,000 IUs, depending on, if you're getting sun exposure and stuff like that. And that's just because most people don't get enough of the sun, and you don't get a meaningful amount through most foods. Now, that's the actual supplement you can take. As for kind of nature's multivitamin for your nutrient-rich diet, beef liver is probably the closest thing to a natural multivitamin because it's loaded with vitamin A in the form of retinol, so like the form that your body actually uses. It has a lot of B12, iron, copper, just so many more things. And that's kind of something that you can use as like your own multivitamin because you can get it in like supplement form. It's like the desiccated liver tablets. That's if you don't like the taste. But you're better off for cost just going with the actual thing. And it's crazy because even though the taste is so bad, you'll know that it has so many nutrients in it because of how you feel after you take it. Like it's one of those things that you actually notice. And even though it tastes bad, you will actually crave it because it has so many of the nutrients that your body just needs. Okay, so as for those two, those I think you just need to have in the diet to optimize it. But what you can add is things like vitamin E, fish oil, magnesium. Those things, I think you should keep them on hand, but don't just use them mindlessly. What you need to do is you need to use Chronometer to track your diet and fill in the gaps when needed. I have a separate video that goes through Chronometer if you want to watch that. We also can supplement basically based on your environment or that specific day's habits. So I'll tell you an example. If you've been sweating a lot from training, or heat, or you're struggling to fall asleep, something like magnesium glycinate can help because you're likely deficient in it if you are sweating a bunch of it out and you haven't had enough through your diet. Another example is if you ate junk food or something with, an excess amount of vegetable oils, because maybe you're on vacation or I don't know, you're at a get together or something like that, you can take some supplemental vitamin E alongside of it, which will help mitigate some of the oxidative stress because things like vegetable oils cause your vitamin E requirements to go up. In the end, for vitamins and minerals, instead of using a machine gun approach of just taking a multivitamin in the morning, like many people, including a lot of healthcare professionals, might tell you, supplement based off of, what you actually need to supplement your life with. Think about it. It's based off of the situation for the day. It's not something that you can just use to replace an entire diet. So that's the multivitamin and vitamin section. Now let's talk about fat burners. We'll talk about them pretty briefly because in reality, none of them actually work to a degree that it's worth taking. You're so much better off actually just expending the energy that you do have being active, because that's going to help you in everything in your life. Like your mental health is very dictated by how much you move and how active you are. So just skip the fat burners. They're literally going to help you maybe burn like a few extra calories. It's not worth it. Instead, just lift weights to avoid the catabolism when you're on a cut. Hit your 10,000 steps because, you're getting outside that way. You're probably going to get in the sun. You're also just going to have better blood flow throughout your body. All those things actually just boost your testosterone, which will help you keep on the muscle that you do have and lose more of the fat. And the other thing is just go play a sport because that's cardio where you actually want to push yourself. And I'm telling you, to burn calories, that's all you need. Now, the next part is, actually taking in the calories. And for that, a lot of appetite suppressants are getting very popular, like your GLP-1 agonists, like Ozempic. Though there are, alternatives coming out to that, and there's going to be so many alternatives coming out to that. One of the more popular ones is Retrogutide, though it's not available widely. Um, I still don't think, even though they're getting better and better, I still don't think it's worth it at all that you need to take an appetite suppressant because really, I think they only have a net benefit if you're obese, to which, in my opinion, if you're obese, you have something like way bigger, like you have mental issues that are way bigger that, you need to sort those out in order for your life to be way more sustainable in the long term. Because, if you're not able to resist food, you're not going to be able to resist a lot of the other temptations that happen in your life that might actually just ruin your life. Along with that, your discipline probably sucks because you can't stick with any sort of pain. Like you have to alleviate it with food. And, if you want to become a better person, a more disciplined person, resorting to something like an appetite suppressant because you're obese is not the way to go. Obviously, I don't think I'm talking to anybody right now that needs to hear that. But I think this goes the same with something like NoFap, for example. Instead of, taking something that's just going to suppress it, instead, why don't you, actually try and avoid these addictions or temptations by finding something to replace it, right? I think oftentimes you probably hear like, and you've probably seen in your own life, those days that like you just had something you were so focused on, you just had a lot more of fun doing it, or it was just it just needed to be done. So you kind of forgot to eat, your bad food. I kind of went on a little bit of this rant, but I will also give you like a supplement that can be used alternatively to a lot of the fat burners or appetite suppressants. But in my opinion, unless you're kind of competing on stage, there's zero reason you need to go into single digit body fat because that just screws up with your energy levels and your hormones for both males and females. Instead, if you just focus on eating a nutrient rich diet, because getting in the nutrients will actually make you feel more full on top of the fact that fruits, vegetables, and high protein diets, all of those just naturally take up more volume and make you feel more full. I feel like you don't actually need any supplement to do that, though, because this is a supplement video. What has been shown to work for mild appetite suppression as well as like the calorie burning thermic effects is like an old school EC stack. So what that means is it's caffeine plus ephedrine, Now, ephedrine might not be available where you are, so again, consult professional if you need to, or do your research first. But the caffeine basically just ramps up your energy, and so it gets you moving more, but also your fat oxidation. But the ephedrine, what it'll do is stimulate your metabolism, and it also has a little bit of a appetite suppressant effect. And so I think that's really all you need if you are getting to the lower ends of body fat, where it's getting a little bit harder, and you're still doing your cardio and you're eating well. I think those are really the only things you need. But like I said, at the same time, unless you're competing, you have no reason to get into those single digit starving levels. And when you combine these two, they have like a very good synergistic effect. But I would say try not to use this year round. In fact, I think most people should actually be bulking when they start out, because once you put on that initial amount of mass, it becomes way easier to lose the fat afterwards, because having more muscle is going to actually increase your metabolism. That's a big problem I had at the beginning, where when I was skinny fat, I started by cutting, and I weighed such a small amount that cutting literally did nothing except just get rid of a lot of the muscle that I had, and I was just left with an even more skinny fat physique, or just like a plain skinny physique. Whereas instead, I should have first put on the muscle and then done my slow cut afterwards. All right, so I have a few more supplements to discuss, but I think I'll do this in a later video because this one's getting kind of long. For the next one, maybe I want to figure out supplements that are better for energy and mental clarity. But I'll leave that for now, and I'll give you kind of one last message. In my opinion, supplements, you just have to use them on top of a regular, healthy diet, which, you can figure out what that is through something like Chronometer. And you just need to use these supplements on a case by case basis. You don't want to take a pre workout every day, but you can use it before a certain workout, because all it'll do is enhance it without too many negative effects. The thing is, ultimately, most supplements don't actually do what they're supposed to, or not to a high effect. It's not going to change, how you behave for the most part, unless it's completely replacing some of your natural hormones. But then you get into a lot of other problems, like you kind of become dependent. For example, taking exogenous testosterone will have a very profound effect on you, and it'll help you in a lot of different ways. But the problem is you become dependent on it, which has its own negative associations. So in my opinion, for the vast majority of supplements, just take them as supplements. They will not change too much. The main thing that will change your life is actually doing the hard work that you have to do on yourself by becoming more disciplined and eating a balanced diet, and taking care of the mental blockades that you have in your mind.